I will call the meeting of the Conservation Commission open for the 1st of December, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our November 17th meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve them.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right, we have no new hearings tonight and no continued hearings, but we do have some administrative items. And I believe we have a presenter for 265 East Center Street. Is that the minor project change proposal? Okay.
Scott, do you want to present, or do you want me to present it for you?
I can present if you want, John.
Okay, I'll put you as a, be able to share. Hold on for a second.
You want to call up the plan because I don't have the ability to do that.
Oh, okay. That's what I meant. All right.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. It's up, I think. Does everybody see it?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, Scott, it's all yours.
All right, good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Rogers, JK Holmgren Engineering. We were contacted by Mr. Delano, and we attended a site meeting on November 17th. Essentially, we came up with 4 main areas to look at to address changes to the plan that were made during construction. One was the 4 parking spaces in the bottom right-hand corner of the site at the entrance. The grade was a little bit higher than what the original plan had called out for. A lot of that was driven by the building inspector when they put in the concrete slab for the building. He wanted about 8 inches or so additional gravel inside the for the slab grading essentially, and they put in, basically lifted the building up by a foot total. The second item was there was a trench drain that will be installed near the entrance to the property, and that will be installed probably at a later date, but that was discussed at the meeting. The emergency spillway in the basin, the pocket wetland on the front left of the site was not installed at that meeting at that point. And then the area in the back of the property, there was some grading issues back there where essentially the site was sort of tipped reversed to how it was supposed to be. The area in the back was essentially lower than the area where John is pointing to, the sediment forebay. The intent was to have the water flow in that direction. So we basically issued a sketch, which you're looking at right now, which addressed those issues. We did propose in the rear of the property a new basin, catch basin, with a couple of swales that would direct the water from the paved areas into that basin, and then a pipe that would be directing the stormwater over to the sediment forebay, which is really where it's supposed to be going. We also had our survey crew go out. We staked all the pavement areas, all the edges of pavement and parking, and gave the contractor grade stakes to to shoot for the correct grades. At that time that we went out, and again, I went out there again today, the emergency spillway in the bottom left-hand corner of the site has been installed. So that was really kind of the gist of it. We tried to correct the problems that were identified, and that's the sketch that you see before you tonight.
The other thing I might add is it did not appear that they had a place where, on this plan here, it shows how the front parking area on the left side, as you come in, they didn't have a way for that water to get into this basin here, the sediment forebay. And so all of that drainage plus the trench drain is going into a sediment forebay here, which then overflows into a regular basin. So we had the site meeting, as Scott mentioned, and Scott said that his company would go out and do an as-built of what it looked like as of that time that we had our site meeting. And then they developed this plan that shows how the site could be modified to work pretty much the way it was supposed to. So it's not just a slight change. There are some major changes with a catch basin here and a pipe, that kind of thing. And as Scott said, the building inspector made them raise the grade because he wanted 8 inches of stone underneath the building. And so that made this building go up a little higher than what was proposed originally. Even so, that it's that a little bit more than a minor change or slight change, I still think it fits in the category of a minor project change. And they are trying to get the paving done before the plants close this year and before the ground freezes. So rather than putting them through a whole new public hearing, I think the engineers have addressed my concerns to make this project work more like what it's supposed to, and yet we can still keep them going forward. So the developer just assumed that they could do these construction changes, even though the special conditions indicate that you're not supposed to make any changes without conservation approval. So if it was something minor, very minor, I probably could say go ahead and do it or bring it to the commission's attention, but we got left out of the loop. It's not as if this developer has a track record of not paying attention to our orders. So I'm in the frame of mind to recommend that it's still within the spirit of a minor project change and that the commission should approve it as such, or I'm recommending that you do.
Okay, my only questions, John, are going to be to the right of the property, where the elevation was changed. All the drainage on the side of that building is all being directed towards the back into the front drains. Because of that elevation, there's quite a bit of riprap along the right-hand side of the property line. I just want to make sure that we're not going to have any drainage onto the neighbor's property caused by the elevation change.
I know the answer, but Scott, why don't you answer it?
Well, when you look, the site was raised up, the building inspector made us do that, which kind of forced the site to be higher than, we originally intended. If you look at the existing conditions, I think that site on the right-hand side, or that would be the east, I guess, had kind of existing, I wouldn't call them drainage problems, but it had existing low points that sort of existed prior to this development anyways. And the developer and the site contractor have worked with the abutting property owner as best they can to help him alleviate his drainage issue. They put up, hundreds of dollars worth of stone and gravel on his property. to try to alleviate his problem. But I don't think that really the problem was created by our development. I think it really existed there before. And there's a small area that, I mean, it's a strip that's probably, 3 feet wide, that's not paved, that goes, towards his area. So it's a minor amount of, runoff, if you will. So,
Okay,
yeah, they've
Because I
been working
noticed-
with the abutting property, as
Okay.
best they can. So,
because I noticed where the snow removal area is on the right, but on the back, John, where they're putting in that new drain, there was originally on the plan a proposed snow removal storage area. How's that going to be affected with that drain going into the wetland, into the catch basin, and then into the wetland from there? I know previously with projects, we haven't let them stockpile right next to the wetland area. I'm just thinking of the Market Basket one in particular, where we had to have them store it somewhere different. And with that drain just being put there, how's that gonna work?
So having that drain there, as the snow melts, it'll get into the catch basin. And they have raised the grade in that area. Originally, they had it so that it would just run off this parking lot and into the buffer. And so now, because they're going to make the swale that you see, the swale at 2% and 2%, they put more dirt in this area here, more loam, and built it up so that the water doesn't run to the wetlands, but towards this riprap catch basin with riprap around it to prevent any erosion. And they also have on the plan the Cape Cod berm all the way along the side so that the runoff from the paving will be directed to this back instead of going off onto the abutter. And as a suggestion, where you have this parking lot, there was a little bit of a drainage issue there, so I suggested that they create a swale to let that come onto their property to alleviate this guy's problem. And I said, I'm not telling you you have to do it. It just would be a good neighborly thing so that the person to your right or to as your neighbor doesn't have a problem, and all you're doing is just adding it to the wetland area anyway. And they did do that. So
Okay,
I think we've solved a little bit of that issue with the neighbor, and we also I think have improved this back area with putting in that catch basin.
So that 6-inch pipe is already in?
So they've installed that since the time that we met, and they got this plan in anticipation that you would approve it. And the developer did say he's doing it at his own risk, just in case you didn't like it.
Okay. And that the only other thing was the trench drain on the street at a later date, but we're not going to sign off on the plan till that's done, I'm sure. So
That's correct. Yep.
Yep.
I kind of squawked about it and said, you got to get it in there, but they did bring up a good point that in blacktopping it,
Yeah.
they would probably get some damage to it. And so what they're going to do is they're going to cut it in after the paving has been installed, and then bring it right up to grade with patching it around the trench.
Okay.
So
I don't have
Scott, are they
anything else.
putting a binder on it first and then a finish coat? Is that what the plan is?
I believe they will be. Yep.
Yeah, so the finish coat will come right up to the
Yeah.
lip of the trench drain.
All right.
okay, but by eliminating that one parking space, I assume there was extra built into it, so the planning board's not gonna have an issue?
They didn't eliminate it. What they did is they raised the elevation here,
Oh, okay,
and where they didn't have one here, when I first went to the site, if you can see my cursor,
Yep,
It ran something like this right over to here.
okay, okay,
And so they now have stakes set here to show how they're going to have that handicap parking area.
okay. I don't have anything else. Anybody else? Questions? Comments?
Mm-mm.
All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to call it a minor project change and approve it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
Scott.
much. Appreciate it.
Hey,
All right. I guess we have some follow-up reports and updates.
All right. Woodrow Lane. I went out and took a look at the site. They aren't putting any of that construction debris into the buffer. There is a chain link fence there along the back, and all of the chain link fence is outside of the 50-foot buffer. So any of the construction material that was piled up alongside the fence was on outside the 50-foot buffer, but on the homeowner's free range area. So it looked as if it might have been, but I stood at each one of the pipes and looked. And I'm still working out with the homeowner a way to replant and protect that buffer that they disturbed. So more on that will come as, actually I'm contemplating having them sign an agreement that they're going to do X, Y, and Z rather than having them submit a plan. So basically just tell them what the restoration will be, instead of putting them through the delay of having an engineer drop a plan and all that. I'll just tell them what they need. And before I tell them and finalize that, I'll go over it with you commission members so that it's everything that you want. All right.
Okay.
mhm.
On 218 South Elm Street, the transfer station, I have reached out to Silva Engineering, who is doing the site plans for the new building that's going to go down there. I guess the people that operate the transfer station are going to have a new building with a restroom in it and a septic system. And so trying to roll any of the things that we need to do to put in conservation markers or restore the 50-foot buffer area, try to roll it into that project so that all can be done at the same time. I also reached out to Chris Anatelli, and he's going to get me a copy of a plan that was used as a conceptual plan when they proposed at town meeting that they needed an engineer design of that site, so that we're not tied down waiting for Silva Engineering to submit a plan. I can kind of be ahead of the game by looking at the conceptual plan and give them some suggestions to incorporate into their final design. So I'm still waiting on that.
Do they have a time frame, John, on this? I mean, is it like a spring groundbreaking project, or is it an up in the air project?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I contacted Silva, which I do quite often when I need some information from them directly. And then later on, when I was talking with Chris, I happened to mention it, and he said, gee, I just gave them a call too, because they're way behind in their schedule. So my assumption is that they're over not overworked. They're probably overwhelmed by the amount of work that is coming in, and they're not quite ready. And when we're asking them for something, it's kind of kicking them in the pants a little bit. And they got it from both of us without either one of us knowing the other was contacting them. So they got a double whammy. Chris had mentioned that they should be finishing up their work so that it can be done in the spring, and that it should have been done sooner than what is now appearing to be. So he's going to be putting some pressure on them, and I will get back to him and ask them if they could follow up with what I asked them for. So apparently all these engineering companies are just overwhelmed with work, and I don't know if it's because of the interest rates being so low, everybody's wanting additions and pools and all kinds of things that require engineered plans. And the companies just don't have the ability to go out and hire more people, because that type of technical employee is hard to find without stealing them from someone else. And so if you're going to start doing that, you get a bad reputation. So they don't like to do that.
Okay, that's gives us a time frame anyway, so we kind of know where we're at.
Yeah. But I'll as soon as I do get a hold of that plan that Chris is going to try to find for me. He is ill right at the moment, so he hasn't been available for the last few days. I know it's only Tuesday, but I think I spoke to him last week, and he was ill at that time as well. So,
All right, that's a good update. And we have two proposed the zoning changes and the tree clearing, which I think we'll put those to the next meeting.
okay.
Or do you have an update?
I can just give you a real quickie, but I'm going to take all of the exhibits that I put together for this particular zoning change, which included different geometric shapes that meet the spirit of the proposed language that I sent to you. And in general, I find that the narrower the geometric shape is and longer it is, the greater shape factor comes out. So we had set a proposed maximum of 22, shape factor of 22. So when you start making a long, narrow shape, the shape factor rises real quick and goes above that 22. So the whole idea is to try to keep it more uniformly wide and long, so that you don't have let's say a triangle that's broad on the base and goes up to a sharp point at the top. That kind of a shape factor would result in, just happen to have it here, but I'll be sending it to you, of 28.9, almost 29, because it's a triangle is wide at one side, narrow at the other, and it really drives that shape factor up. So the intent is try to have something more or less uniform, and of 18,000 square feet, which is approximately 18,600, which is approximately what everybody seems to be using for their yards. So I'm going to call up an example to show you.
I just hit unmute.
Well, we hear you, we just don't see you yet.
Yeah. There it is.
Hey, there he is.
All right, so this is, okay. This is lot 1 on the proposed Lamppost Lane subdivision. That's going to be at the corner of Lincoln and South Elm Street. So this is a prime example of why you need to have a lot shape factor regulation. So lot number 1 is shown as containing 54,999. So let's say 55,000 square feet of usable land, or sorry, land within the lot. 38,700 square feet is considered upland. But you'll notice this dashed line in the yellow is a drainage easement. So in reality, they can't use the drainage easement. They can't use the area that you see here that's kind of shaded red because that's the 50-foot buffer. So the resulting area that's usable is 15,071 square feet. It has a shape factor of 18.8 because it is kind of uniformly the same width and not too long. So it does come up to a reasonable shape factor, but it doesn't meet the 18,006. So if this was in effect, the developer's engineer would have had to make this lot have 18,600, which would have made it a little bit easier to do all the things that I show on the lot. So here's his septic. This house here is a little odd. If you recall, on Ames Drive, the original developer was proposing a garage with a house configuration right behind the garage because of the narrow area that they could work with. So I couldn't put the normal type house in here because of the setbacks from the property lines for zoning, and still be able to get a regular size house. So I stole the footprint from Ames Drive, which was the original developer's layout, which since has changed, but it does fit, but not everybody would like to be pigeonholed into a small lot like this. So if we had that, the developer would have had to move this line over considerably to make the 18,600 square feet, which probably would have allowed a regular conventional mega mansion type house that they're now building. And I'll show you another one very quickly this time. Maybe not so quick, sorry. So this is the lot right next to it, lot number 2. And you can see that the area of the buildable area of this lot is 23,104 square feet, and the shape factor is 17. And remember when I said lot 1, they could have moved the lot line over? Well, he's 23,000. All he needed really was 18,600. So that he could have taken a little bit out of this lot and added it to this to be able to put in a conventional single family house with a garage on the side. with a pool, play area, deck, and shed and septic. So I did this for all of the lots in the subdivision. And the only ones that that really are a problem is lot number 1. And I think the other lot that had a little bit of trouble was lot number 4. And again, I think the developer could have got the same number of houses on there, so we wouldn't be accused of making them lose lots. If he just rearranged them a little better, then you wouldn't have people trying to encroach into the 50-foot buffer because they needed the extra room. They would have plenty of it as it is. So as a result of what I showed you on lot number 1, I would like to modify what I sent you before. It said that the 18,600 square feet development polygon cannot contain wetlands or the 50-foot buffer. I'd like to add in or easements, because easements really take away the use of that land. And so most of the time the easements are not just where they're running a pipe through underneath the ground. It's usually the drainage basin, and you can't use that as part of the yard. So like on lot number 1, all of that's wasted space. Not wasted, it's used, but it's not available for the homeowner. So I'm going to be sending you a revision that'll indicate that it can't have the easements, drainage easements, or the buffer or the wetlands. So 3 things. And the other item that I thought we might want to consider is that we had a maximum of 22, shape factor of 22. But if you took a circle and it contained 18,600 square feet, it would have a diameter of about 153 plus feet. And the shape factor comes out around 12. But in reality, the circle, and even if it isn't a perfect circle, say it was a polygon that just kind of mimicked the shape of a circle, many sides, you'd still not really be able to use it for what we're trying to do, and yet they would meet the spirit of the law and it wouldn't really help the people out. So I'm suggesting that it should be somewhere between 16 and 22, so that we make sure that you get that more or less uniform shape, and that you'd get that by having the 2 parameters of 16 on the low end and 22 on the high. And some of the documents I'll send to you will show that some of these lots have a shape factor of 24.3. But when you look at the lot having a shape factor of 24.3, there's more than enough room for the people to realistically use their yard. And even though it's above that, you could waive that, because we do talk about having a waiver for good cause. And when you look at that particular lot, you can see that the shape of it creates the higher shape factor number, but it still has plenty of area for 23,300 square feet of usable yard. So the shape factor really isn't a deterrent here in that case, because they have so much area to go with it. So I'll send all that to you. We can put it on the next agenda to talk about it. It's not something that needs to be done immediately, but as people start doing more subdivisions down the road, it would be nice to have this in place. So I'll be sending that out to you.
This project hasn't begun yet, has it?
No.
No. What are the steps to getting this approved, John? Say we all agree, what would be next?
So if we're going to do it under our regulation, then we have to advertise it as a public hearing and hold a public hearing and let the public talk about it and ask questions, and then you
Right.
could vote it in.
Okay.
If it's a regulation, it could be considered more restrictive than just what a regulation is, and that it should be a bylaw. Well, if that's the case, then it would have to go to town meeting. So I probably would run it by town administrator, and he would probably run it by town council to see what is the more legal way to do it. The easiest would be regulation.
Mhm.
What were you thinking about putting this into a bylaw though?
So again, if it's a bylaw, you need to go to town meeting, and that may be the only way to go if the town council suggests it. But within the bylaw itself, that you have both stormwater and the wetland bylaw, you are allowed to establish regulations. So the regulation would have the purpose of allowing sufficient room for doing the normal residential uses, plus your stormwater controls such as roof drains and your rain gardens, things that you require as part of your stormwater. To mitigate stormwater, you need area. Whether it's, say it was all flat and you didn't have a rain garden, if you had 18,600 square feet of usable area, that's going to provide some recharge, some retention, some detention, and so it'd be justifiable as a stormwater regulation. As a wetland regulation, you could do the same thing and say that the intent here is to provide a usable area so that the 50-foot buffer does not get encroached upon, because the people need to use their land to the fullest, and that would create damage to the 50-foot buffer, which damages the wetland. So that would be justifiable in that way as well. But again, if town council says that it's more appropriate to be a zoning regulation or zoning bylaw, stormwater bylaw, wetland bylaw, we may have to go that route.
Even with throwing easements in there?
Right. So I'll send it all out. I finally finished it up today. I wanted to take some actual real life subdivisions and see how it would all work out, and it seems like it works out very well. And like I said, lot number one's a good example where if the engineer couldn't meet the area requirement by having only 15,071 square feet, he would have had to make it a little larger, but he could have taken that anywhere along the line and took some from this lot and added it to that and made it more usable. But without the incentive of the requirements, they just did what they felt, and poor people that bought lot number one are left with very little land area and still paying probably taxes like everybody else is on all the other lots with a lot more area. So I know we can't watch out for everybody, but I think we need to watch out for the 50-foot buffer and the wetlands, and this requirement would go a long ways to protecting it.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So the proposed tree clearing. I got a couple of comments back, and one of them was from Steve, suggesting that the height of the replacement trees, if you recall, we had a removal mitigation section where if you remove a compromised tree, you have to plant 3 trees and to replace it. And I suggested a minimum of 3 feet in height. And Steve feels it should be 4 feet in height, or if other members feel it should be different, maybe a diameter. Tim would probably be a good one to chime in on that. If it needs to be a certain diameter at breast height, it might lead to a bigger tree. So a 4-foot tree might only have a 1/2-inch diameter trunk.
If that. Yeah, I mean, 4-foot tree would probably have a 1/2 inch. At nursery specs, we measure 6 inches off the ground for a caliper. So it would have probably a 1/2 inch caliper at a 4-foot, which is a pretty small tree.
Yeah.
And knowing how DEP looks at the regulations, that you don't have to have 100% take. So you're going to expect at least one of those 3 trees to die, and that would be acceptable. But I still think going with 4-foot tree would be better than 3-foot. And the chances are either one, they're all probably going to live. I mean, as long as you're not planting them in a drought and you don't water them at all. But I agree with Steve that a 3-foot tree is going to get lost really quick on a site. And you might
Okay.
not even realize it's there.
I mean, is it unrealistic to say that someone that took down a 60-foot tree to say you got to put in a 20-foot tree?
Yeah, know how much money that would cost?
Well, that's what
if-
we're trying to do. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do. Because it's been cleared and, oh, now I got my sunlight. Oh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll put 4-foot trees in. You know, they got away with it. So if we don't do something like that, and John's gonna
Right.
get onto it here, the financial penalty's gotta be, it's gotta hurt. So that, the word would then get around, you wanna fool around like that, it may cost you $10,000 or something. But we don't have it in place right now, so there's really nothing we can do. And I don't even know, if we could impose fines of that nature, so.
So we have 2 situations that develop regularly. And one of them is we get a call. They need me to come out and look at a tree that's in danger of coming over onto their house. So they've asked to have it removed, and they haven't taken it out yet. So they've asked, using this this policy or regulation, we could say, yes, you can take that tree out. It's not in the 50-foot buffer. It's not in the wetlands. And we want you to, I'm sorry, it is in the 50-foot, because this thing is only, this policy or regulation is only for jurisdictional trees. So they take out, let's say, 1 tree, and they plant 3 trees, and it's not something that's been done as a violation.
Right.
So then we have the other situation where there's violations where they cut the trees down, and then they come in and say, oh, sorry, we didn't know. That's where you could enforce the replanting of it plus a fine. And I did send you, Mo, a copy of the fines, but I can probably pretty well remember what it is. So say we find out that they've cut down a tree and they're asking for forgiveness because they got caught. We can send them a letter saying you're in violation and your fine is $100. And they don't replace it. They don't do anything. They don't make any attempt to correct the situation. Then we send them another letter saying that this is your second notice of violation. So now it's a $200 fine. And then you can keep going up from there. So It isn't something that runs from the day they get notified till the day they fix it, that they get fined every day. It's every time they get a notice from us, that's an additional violation day, and that's how we can increase the fines. So that is how you deal with people who have violated it. The ones who voluntarily come to you and say, we need to cut this. And if there's any question, we can ask them to have an arborist tell us that there is a problem. But a lot of times I can tell pretty much, and I'm not an arborist, I don't mean to try to sound like I am one, but you can look at a tree and see damage or rot, and it's a good assumption to say, yes, let's cut it. But you're gonna have to put in 3 trees. If it's in the 50-foot buffer, well, that may, I think the policy requires filing with the commission instead of just having me tell them to go ahead. So for removal of no more than 2 compromised trees within the 50-foot buffer, it does allow the agent to permit it with obvious signs of imminent failure. For removal of 3 or more, up to 6, it requires a filing with the commission for request for determination. And for trees that are in the riverfront, same. And if there's more than 6 that are being cut, it requires a notice of intent. So there's a process to follow, which I guess number one reason for doing this is to have a uniform process so that everybody's being treated the same way. Nobody can say they weren't treated the same way. So if we have that process, that's good. It's just a matter of figuring out the right wording.
Are those numbers of 100, 200, are those sort of arbitrary numbers that you've come up with, or other towns have, or could we make that anything we want?
So let me get the actual section of the bylaw.
So I'm thinking, while you're looking that up, that, you take a 8-inch diameter tree and say you had a bylaw of $100 an inch. So that just costs them $800 for taking that tree down. Even that, I suspect, with people buying $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 homes is just a blink. But they get rid of all the trees that were blocking them.
So this is the actual section of the wetland bylaw that allows us to fine.
Okay.
So it starts off at 100, goes to 2, and then 300 for each day thereafter. So let's say they don't respond with the 3rd letter they get. If we send them a 4th letter, it's an additional 300. So now that jumps. So whatever they've been notified ahead of that, plus that, it can start to multiply pretty quickly afterwards.
So we're limited by this bylaw then, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Now,
However, I think we need to look at when we do get them to finally come in and do a notice of intent and a filing, we have to get consistent on the replication work that has to get done. And that's where we need to decide, okay, if they've taken down 7 8-inch diameter trees,
Right.
then we want, them to replace it with 26 2-inch diameter trees. So they're going to have to financially spend some money. And within a wetland area, we can say the work has to be done by hand because we don't want a machine in there.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to hire a landscaper to come in and dig 26 holes to plant that many 2-inch trees, your labor charge is going to be extraordinarily high.
And I go along with that, Tim. I don't think it'd be too hard to put that together, do you?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think it's something we have to seriously consider, that this is how we're gonna deal with violations of
Violations,
this
yeah.
nature within I mean, we've been nice to a point and said, okay, yes, you didn't know, and we've given you a pass and just let you go.
Right.
But as an example, the one on Harvestwood, that was a pretty extensive replanting plan that he had to come up with. And there was
Right.
monitoring, and a lot of plants went into that.
Yeah.
And I think that one, the neighborhood saw what happened and realized that, yeah, he didn't get off with just a slap on the wrist. There was some money he had to put out to get that all done.
That on top of that, I mean, that's a big enough fine right there that Mo was talking about. Never mind having to like $100 an inch. Put your money into hiring a landscaper and all that stuff. That's a big fine right there that I think people will have a second thought about maybe doing it in the future, or especially if they see it happen to somebody else.
I agree, yeah.
So let's say there was a violation and we send them an enforcement order. It's going to refer to the mitigation portion of the violations and also require the filing of a notice of intent. So the notice of intent then would be, or a restoration order, either way. And in that, we could require landscape people to do the plantings, not just Joe Schmo, the person who doesn't know how to dig a regular hole for a shrub.
Right.
And also the fine, and also under this policy, the violation says that in addition to the fines, the replacement mitigation for ratios for tree replacement bumps up to 6-to-1 instead of the 3-to-1. And the replacement for saplings is also 6-to-1. Replacement ratio for shrubs will be 8-to-1. And the replacement ratio for unauthorized removal of the herbaceous layer shall be 1-to-1, so that we don't unnecessarily disturb more area. So as long as they get a ground cover, I would be satisfied. But as far as the shrub plantings, that those jump up considerably, 6-to-1 and 8-to-1, depending on what it is, a shrub or tree sapling. So there are some pretty strict things in there, which many of the towns don't have that. They just have a policy and says that you're going to follow this procedure to get permission. Some of them don't require mitigation, some do. So I tried to take as much of the good from all of them and put it into ours. And so I'm going to send it out again with the change to the 4-foot height. And we might even require something similar and maybe even higher or bigger or taller under the violation section.
For a bigger tree, I mean.
Yeah. Because again, if it's voluntary and they're going through the right process, then 3-to-1 and a 4-foot high tree is reasonable. If you're coming to us because you violated and you're being penalized, the 6-to-1 could be 8-foot high or 10-foot high trees.
And it would be 6 for every tree?
Yes.
Cut down?
Yep. So I don't know how Tim, if we were to buy a 8-foot red maple from your nursery,
yeah,
about what would that cost? Roughly.
You'd probably be, and if it's retail wise, you're looking at about $325 a tree.
Yeah,
and
so
plus
installation, right?
Well, that'll
I mean,
get some attention.
You're up to about $700 a tree to get that put in.
Yeah, well, you know,
and you take down 5 trees, that's some serious money right there.
yeah, but I really think we need to do that. I mean, we just have to do that. It's again,
Right, I
it's
mean,
it's too easy to just take them down and say, gee, I'm sorry, and I'll try and do better.
Yep.
So I'm all in favor of something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm in favor for that too.
So I'll add a height requirement under the violation mitigation ratios. Not assuming it's going to be the 4 foot. It's got to be something greater than that.
Yep.
All right, I'll send it out.
Okay?
Great. And as a side note to that, I don't know what any of you have been noticing on the hub, but the gentlemen over on Columbus that have had the tree work done. And the
I saw
removals,
that too. Yeah.
and he's now looking for another reputable landscaper or tree company to come in and fix all the problems that got created by the gentleman that was there. And he's got pictures of timber and trees all stacked in his backyard and holes in his front yard where the stumps are partially dug out and not completed. And he's complaining that it's been 3 months now going on and it still hasn't been resolved and finished. And
I assume
so
that's
buyer
all legitimate.
beware.
That's all legitimate, Tim? That clearing, as far as you know?
The stuff in the front was. I know John went out and looked, and I know one of the neighbors is supposedly going to be filing eventually with us because there
Both
was
of-
violation.
Both of them. Yeah,
Okay.
They had it. We did a cease and desist and allowed the front yard and side yard where it was over 100 feet away. But everything they did in the 100-foot buffer. Well, originally, I went out and determined there were wetlands within our jurisdiction of the area that they had disturbed by cutting trees and rutting around out there. So I said, you better hire a botanist to confirm what I've found. And they did, and the botanist did confirm it and flagged it. And now they're hiring an engineer to locate the flags and do up a notice of intent to restore some of the areas they've damaged and also to put some loam and seed down for some lawn expansion, but nothing within the 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
So it's coming, but again, I'm sure the engineer is probably busy and if it
One
goes
of
too
these
long.
one of these is a brand new homeowner who just bought his house and had this tree guy come in, and I mean, they haven't even lived there, I think 7 or 8 months, and the half the time they've lived there, they've had their whole yard torn up, and the pictures on the Facebook post are just deplorable to have to live like that.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
the kids have no yard.
No,
I mean,
no.
so hopefully with these proposed tree clearing regulations, we'll be able to get a handle on some of this.
I agree.
So John, the only other thing I think is invoices. Do we have
Yeah,
any?
we do. Let me see if I can find them. These are the times I wish we were meeting face to face. It'd be a little easier.
Well, you do pretty well considering. I don't think I'd want to be in the towns that, haven't met for 6 months.
Yeah.
You can imagine what the people are doing behind the back, behind the town's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the people that, want to, the contractors that want to get going and they can't. Anyone been over to Scotland Street to see what's going on? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone crazy. I mean, it's,
I gotta get
Another-
over there in the daytime.
They've moved a lot of dirt and brought a lot in.
I haven't been that way in months. I should take a look. I haven't been down there.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first invoice, and it's a Zoom meeting subscription reimbursement for our July subscription. And it's for $14.99 because the town doesn't pay taxes. So $14.99.
do you want us to do them as one individual or one lump bunch at the end, John?
Yeah, let's do them all one lump sum, but
Okay.
I just wanted to write down
Yep.
so I
Yep.
don't forget. All right, and the next one, I've got 3 of them. All right, this one's for JM Goldson LLC. They're the people that work with Cheryl Cambria on the Community Preservation Committee. And we are the go-between for Skim Milk Bridge project. And so they've submitted an invoice for their consulting services for task 1 and 3 on a contract that we had signed, coordinating the effort to do the sending out the bids and getting the Skim Milk Bridge contractors to do their work for National Historic designation, and also to do the analysis of what's going to be needed to restore the bridge. So we're taking this money out of the Community Preservation Fund, which was voted at town meeting. So I have a warrant all prepared with the right numbers. I checked with the accountant today to make sure that it was right. And so the invoice is for $1484.60.
Okay. All right.
And then I have one more. This is for WB Mason. If you recall, I bought a scanner because I got a cheaper price buying it as an individual than through the town. And so I bought it for $343.99 and not asking for the reimbursement of the tax. And it still came out cheaper than what it would have been if the town paid for it direct. And that's the only reason I did it. And it's been great to use. And I've had it since the first week of July. And I had had the commission vote to approve what they call maybe you know it better than I do, Mo. when they have to pay for a invoice from the previous fiscal year to the next, they encumber it. There's the word.
Yeah.
So-
Uncovered. Yep.
So the commission voted to encumber both this one and the Zoom meeting. And it's been sitting there waiting to be paid. And when I asked how come it hadn't been paid, they said, well, you haven't done the warrant. You did the encumbrance, but you didn't do the warrant. So finally catching up. And so it's for $343.99. So we have WB Mason for $343.99, Zoom for $14.99, and Jen Goldston for $1,484.
84.
Yeah,
80/40.
so that's it.
So we need a motion for Tim to sign.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So moved.
And that's all I have. Unless,
Anybody have
I have a question of.
anything else?
I don't know if I asked this the last one or not, but Beacon Hill over there, they were gonna do some work up there, but the contractor or somebody backed out. I think it's Beacon Hill up there where the trailer park is up there.
Oh, Beacon Sales? No.
I can't think, but somebody asked me, they want to know why that they weren't doing anything. The contractor or the engineer or whatever backed out, or the person who was gonna do it, whoever it was that
Was
bought.
that the parcel in the front closest to the road?
I think
were
it
looking to
might be, I'm
develop?
not sure. Is that Beacon, is it Beacon Hill? Or
so it used to be called, it's Westbridge Landing now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
but it used to be called Beacon Park,
Yeah, okay.
Beacon
So
Park, I think.
they were gonna do something there, right?
And you're talking about the one that has the little white building on it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that might be the
That's the
one.
one.
But then all of a sudden they're not gonna do anything. Somebody asked me if there was a reason why they weren't gonna do anything or they backed out for. I'm like, I have no clue.
So if it's the one I'm thinking of, Lee, the little white building was going to be converted into a dog kennel.
Oh, really?
And they did a whole bunch of site work. And when the building inspector found out about it and said, you can't just go do that, you have to go for a special permit,
Is that for West Bridgewater or Brockton? West Bridgewater. right?
West Bridgewater. You need to go to probably the zoning board, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember which one. I'm pretty sure it was a special permit, so probably zoning board, and it came to a halt. Plus, the owner of the mobile home park wanted to add some more units from that piece of land to his, and he's not authorized to do that without going through another approval process. He's only authorized to do the units that are in the original park. And this is outside of it, even though it's abuts it and touches it, and he now owns it. He can't just go and start adding more units there without Board of Health approval and probably some other approvals as well. So I think that's why everything's come to a screeching halt.
Okay.
If that's the one, but if not, if you can think of something else other than that, Lee, just give me a buzz and I'll go in and look for it.
Okay. I think that might be it though.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be the one too.
Yeah.
All right,
Alright.
anybody have anything else?
Mm-mm.
All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second, anybody second? Well, I'll second that one.
All righty. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty.